Please have a seat. My name is Rabbi Yaron Kapitulnik. I'm the rabbi at Temple Judea and Hood Road, and I had the privilege 2 weeks ago to have Gila and her family on the Bima on a Friday night at Temple Judea, celebrating what I thought was only her 80th. She didn't look a day over 80, but 88th birthday. She lit the candles. Her grandchildren said the Kiddush, and the smile on her face throughout the service, the kiss and the hug that I received when she left, and knowing that we were able to give her that beautiful experience just Shabbat 2 weeks ago, just before the holiday, will be something that I always carry with me. You know, Gila has twin sisters. One of them is with us here today, and the other is, I think, watching us through video in Israel, and twin grandsons. And so I think it's just appropriate to begin with a story about two twins that are in their mother's womb. And one turns to the other and says, "So, you think this is it?" And the second one says, "What do you mean?" He says, "We've been here for about 9 months. It's pretty nice here. We have everything we need. We have all the nourishment. We have pretty nice condition. Life is nice, but do you think this is it? This is what life is all about?" And the second one says, "Yeah, I guess." So I don't know. This seems a little bit like, what's the meaning of this? We're just in this womb. The second one says, "I don't know. Nobody ever left the womb and came back to tell us if there's something after when you leave the womb." They keep talking, and then the first one says to, and you know what? Let's leave that question alone. But what do you think about this thing that people say? Does it exist or not? Does mother exist? And the second one looks and says, "Nah, that's something babies make up. Do you see a mother? I don't see a mother. We're in a womb. There's no mother." The first one says, "But sometimes when I'm really, really quiet, when I really calm down, I can feel her presence all around me. I feel that she feeds me and that she nourishes me and that I'm everything because of this thing called mother." The second one says, "Come on, you want to believe that, so you could believe whatever you want." And they keep on going, and I think you're already understanding the gist of this story about the twins, because 9 months pass and the tunnel opens and there's a bright light like we see in the movies, and one twin is pulled out, and the other twin that remains in the womb hears the cries. He hears crying and screaming outside, and he's terrified. And my friends, this is us. We are in this womb. We have everything we need. Life seems fine in this womb, and we wonder, how did we get here? We don't know. We wonder, is there something after we leave the womb? But no one has ever left this womb to come back and tell us there's something after. And we ask ourselves, is there a mother? Is there a God? And sometimes when we're really quiet and if we're really paying attention, we can almost feel God's presence nourishing us and feeding us and keeping us alive. And I want you to hold on to this story, given that we have so many twins here, because I want us today to erase whatever it is that we're coming in here, any kind of cynicism, any kind of disbelief. The goal of this afternoon here today is to celebrate Gila's life, is to reassure us in our faith that Gila's soul continues to live in a realm beyond our understanding, and to remind us of what Gila would have wanted of us, to keep carrying her legacy of loving her family, her legacy of being connected so deeply to her Judaism and to Israel, her legacy of always being involved, always being active, always doing something, her legacy of love, of volunteering, her legacy of not cooking, her legacy of, I try not to talk about food during Passover because the last day of Passover, I'm already dreaming of the pizza tomorrow night, but a legacy of desserts. That is what our goal is here today. And so we begin by reminding ourselves that birth is a beginning and death is a destination. But life is a journey, a going, a growing from stage to stage, from childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength or strength to weakness and often back again, from health to sickness and back we pray to health again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backwards or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, but life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage made stage by stage, from birth to death, to life everlasting. And so today we are going to hear about this journey, and in between the stories about this journey, we'll reconnect to some Jewish text and some Jewish teaching about what happens to us when we live, when we die. I want to first call, I believe, Sharon and Glenn. You're going to come up together? Okay. Sharon and Glenn, of course, are beautiful children.
I'm one of the shorter ones in the family. Thank you, everyone, for coming to celebrate Mom. So we're going to share some of our favorite memories of Mom today, just like we did for our dad's funeral service. And Mom had requested that we do the same for her.
Our mom was such a beautiful and strong woman, inside and out, a radiant smile. She would look you in the eyes with that beautiful smile, and that always made for a beautiful day. So caring and loving to her family and friends, always living life to the fullest with a positive and strong attitude. We'd like to share some stories about Mom with you.
One of our mother's oldest memories was from 1947. She was 9 years old in Israel, where she was born. And the United Nations was taking the vote on whether the state of Israel was going to be born. And once the vote came in, my mother and her family and friends were listening back then around the radio. And when the vote came in and they knew it was going to happen, everybody ran out into the streets. And though she was 9, she understood what was going on, maybe not like some of the adults, but it's one of her earliest memories. And then another earlier memory that she loved to share was how she became the first teacher. So when my mom was in her army service in Israel, she was serving as a school teacher for immigrant children who came to Israel and did not speak Hebrew, and she was teaching them. And it was Yemeni people. It was in southern Israel. And in the center where these people came, and they called them absorption centers, so that they could be absorbed and learn how to live in Israeli society, they had a picture of the current prime minister on the wall. And one day my mom came to work, and she found that her picture was placed next to the prime minister's. And they began calling her the first teacher. And that's not quite the end of the story, because her supervisor came and saw this and saw how my mother interacted with the Yemeni kids that she was teaching and their families. And Mom was doing such a good job that her supervisor recommended her for an international teacher exchange program that would eventually bring her to New York. Is that me? Yeah. And then another early memory. Think, for those of you who are already 24 or close to it, think about Could you, at that age, leave the only country you had ever lived in, where you were born, where your friends, your family were? And that's exactly what my mother did. When she accepted the position in the teacher exchange program and came to New York, which you're going to hear a little bit more about from my brother, but it just tells you what a daring person my mother was, our mother was, how adventurous she was. Because I don't know about you, but at 24, I don't think I could have done more than maybe vacation. I don't know that I could have made such a long-term life change. She was amazing.
So my father, Herb Cooper, or Herbie Cooper, and my mom had a mutual friend back in New York in February of 1964. His name was Leslie Schwartz, but he went by the name Labela Babela. And Labela Babela went to my dad, said, Herbie, and my father wasn't looking to really get married at that point. He was, I think, enjoying his long bachelorhood. But he said, Labela said to Herbie, you got to meet this woman. She's an Israeli goddess. And my mom agreed as well to meet this nice man from Brooklyn. And Herbie and Gila met. Herbie took her to a Dudley Moore Broadway show, heavy Cockney accent. Mom knew English, but for those of you that know Dudley Moore, that's pretty hard to follow. But she went along and laughed and smiled throughout the show. They went to a really nice Chinese restaurant that my father had gone to for many, many years. And when my mom went up to go to the bathroom, the waiter who knew my dad very well said, Herbie, this is the one. And he was right. They were engaged 3 weeks later and married less than 3 months later. So it was meant to be a Schreft, love at first sight, and the loving relationship that they had for each other and that they also gave to their children and their grandchildren and their family, their sisters and their all family and friends. It really, for me, and I think for all of us, was inspirational.
Mom made our connection to Judaism strong and taught us how to continue to strengthen that so that when we eventually had children, that was a big part of our lives and theirs. We remember celebrating the Jewish holidays at our home in Norwalk, Connecticut, or at our aunt and uncle, Aunt Ann and Uncle Irwin's home in Westchester. I know my Aunt Ann, our Aunt Ann is listening on Zoom, so we love you, Aunt Ann. We also remember, once we moved here, all the holidays at Cousin Annie's house with Jolynn, our cousin who's here, Sharon, who I believe is watching on Zoom, and Lee, who is up there with Mom now. And she always made everything special. She didn't always have the skill set to do it, but she really put in the effort. So for those of you who are Jewish and know about the holiday of Sukkot, when you're supposed to have meals in like a hut kind of a thing, it's in the fall. So Mom and most of the rest of our immediate family, until I married my wonderful husband, Robert, two thumbs, two left hands, whatever you want to say. So Mom went into our backyard. She took regular house string, tied it around 4 trees to make a square, and threw sheets over them, and then decorated the area. And that was our sukkah, and it served a purpose. And for Purim, when we dress up, kind of like Halloween, she would dress us up as hamantashen, special cookies that you eat at Purim, and somewhere in the album we have pictures of that. And also, speaking of her tie to Israel and Judaism, we were so happy when the hostages were freed, and Mom was alive to see that, because that was a really special day. And the tradition's been passed down. Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
So that tradition, that's something Lador Vador from generation to generation. So on Fridays, we light the candles with the candelabras that were passed down from our parents, both Sharon and her home. us in our home. Sometimes we do it together, but if we're not together, we feel connected with mom, with dad, with our family from Israel, because this is something that's been passed down from generation to generation, and that tradition is so important.
And we have so many memories because of my mother and our family in Israel. Because she was a school teacher every summer, she would take me and Glenn and we would go to Israel. And my father would come for a couple of weeks and then have to go back to work. But I remember Mom sitting at the edge of the country club pool watching us learn how to swim. I remember my mother and our aunts taking me and Glenn and all of our cousins for falafel, and all the trips to the Kinneret. And then imagine, it's a long flight, and she traveled with a newborn, and then when Glenn was around, a newborn and a 4.5-year-old. I can't even imagine it. And we would stay with our Saba and Safta, and she would leave us because she recently told me, once we all became parents, that she couldn't wait to get to Israel because she would drop me and Glenn with her parents and then go have fun with her sisters. And that was an amazing thing. And again, one of her sisters is here from Israel. She had her own mitzvah, wonderful blessing, a couple of weeks ago. Her second great-grandchild, my cousin Oritis, who we call Glamma because she's so beautiful, her second grandchild was born, and it really says something about the circle of life.
And the most recent trip that we took to Israel in June of 2023 with a lot of our family, and it was to celebrate the twins, Jacob and Jonathan's B'nai Mitzvah at the Kotel, and joined by our family from Israel along with our family from Florida, and having Mom with us, that was so special. That was her last trip to Israel, but it was so meaningful, the time that we spent together, the places we visited, being at the Kotel, having an amazing Shabbat dinner on the beach, on Tel Aviv Beach, and just the wonderful time together in Israel. And Israel meant so much to Mom, and that it means so much to us as well. And speaking of trips, that's something that Mom and Dad really enjoyed and really gave us the benefit of. Trips to the Caribbean with our friends Artie, June, Cindy, and Amy Blumenthal, who couldn't be here, but I think they're here on Zoom. Wonderful memories were made there. Trips around the United States to national parks, a lot to Florida, trips to Europe. And Mom had wonderful trips with Herbie, with Dad, that they would tell us stories about. They had pictures of it, and so it felt as if we were with them in Kenya doing the safari. In China, in the years when they had just opened up China to American tourism and visiting far-off remote towns where these were the first Americans that they'd ever seen, and especially for those of you that know Herbie, that knew Herbie, he really stood out there. And they would tell us the stories of all the wonderful animals and the sights that they saw in Kenya and the wonderful things they saw in Africa, their European trips. We have beautiful pictures around the house to show us that. So traveling was something that was really important to them and was passed on to us. Traveling with her sisters, with Nitsa and Tamar, on cruises. One of them was from the tip of South America to Antarctica. She talked about that so often, how much she enjoyed, not just the trips, but being with her sisters on those trips. And then Florida. They became snowflakes. They were coming down here so often that we knew it was just a matter of time that they were going to move. And they made that move so easy for us in the late 80s. We all fell in love with Florida. Back before they moved, seeing an iguana or seeing an alligator was a really huge deal, but now we're very accustomed to them. But we remember those first encounters with iguanas and alligators, which now, of course, as Floridians is no big deal at all. But the traveling was something really special for our family, and that Gila really enjoyed.
So when I was young, and even as I got older, and Mom was getting dressed to go out with Dad, and she was always so elegant. And I would sit and watch her literally in awe, and she was so stylish, and her style and elegance, it never stopped. Many people will forever know her as the lady with the hat, and we have a few of her favorites here just to symbolize Mom. And the other thing she was known for, the tricycle rides around PGA National and the swimming, which she did right up until her last days. Mom was also the most positive person I have ever known. Last night, when I was going through some of Mom's things on her desk, I found something that she had shown me not too long after she was diagnosed, almost 2 years ago. It was a saying she saw and she had wanted to keep it near. It said, "You can't change the wind, you can only adjust your sails." And especially the immediate family and the grandkids, whenever you have a special test, job interview, when you have your own kids, always remember her favorite saying, "Kiss the mezuzah and start with your right foot forward."
So similar to our dad, his favorite musician was Frank Sinatra, and the song "My Way." We thought we associated that with Herbie, but now we associate that with Mom too. She did it her way. She decided a couple of years ago how she wanted to deal with stage 4 cancer. Here we are almost 2 years later, and she's lived a wonderful life during those 2 years with family and friends. But we had to get her some help, and that included hospice. And so hospice would come and visit her on a weekly basis, and they would tell us, "We have never seen a patient like this, a hospice patient that goes on her bicycle every day, that goes in the pool every day, that goes to lunches with her friends and goes to the theater and gets together with her family." They couldn't understand it, but then they would realize, yes, she's a stage 4 cancer patient and she's going through all this, but she lived life to the fullest. And people were just in awe of that. She was doing that just until the last days. I went for a bike ride with her on her birthday, which was just not too long ago, on the 27th of March. And we went in the pool and got together with family, and it was very special. But there's two people here in the room that significantly helped maintain Mom's quality of life. Her aides, Anis and Landy, and I want to acknowledge them. You took such good care of Mom, and at the beginning, Mom is a very independent woman. All of you that know her know that. She likes to do things her way, and there was pushback. There was pushback about getting strangers to come in the house. She certainly never wanted to leave the house. She never wanted to go to any facility. She wanted to stay home, and we said, "Yeah, okay, Mom." But she really developed a wonderful relationship with Anis and Landy, and you really helped her maintain a beautiful life. So I want to thank you for that.
Me, right?
And I would also like to thank all of Mom's friends who are here, and those that couldn't be here, because you also helped her maintain that quality of life. From those of you in the patio homes where Mom lives in PGA National that would be with her, be waiting for her at the pool, or going on a bike ride with her every day, or just seeing her in the neighborhood, that meant so much to her. She would start getting ready hours before for the lunches or for the dinners. She so much looked forward to getting together with her friends and her family that the aides would oftentimes send us a picture 3 hours before the time to go out that she was all beautifully dolled up and ready to go, because that meant so much to her. So we just want to thank you all for that. Thank you.
And thank you for the especially the last 2 birthdays, because her friends threw her luncheons, and she was so thrilled to go, and she had such special friends who planned 2 birthday parties for the last 2 years, and she loved you all, and you really made her life special. And Mom was special in so many ways. When I was pregnant, I remember she told me a story after I gave birth to you, Salas, that it was when it was very close to my delivery date, Mom went to donate blood. She wanted to do a good deed. And at the door, she stopped and she realized that if there was an emergency, Solace or I or may need blood, so she had to turn around. And she walked away, and she was prepared to do it for the family. But this is how she was with the family and all the people that she loved. She would go out of her way, delivering food, making a visit, making sure if a friend or a family was having a tough time, she always called regularly just to be there, to have a friendly shoulder to cry on or a friendly ear to listen to whatever was going on. And she always wanted to provide that kind of support for the people that she cared for the most.
Mom was so involved in her grandkids' lives, would go to every one of their performances, games, horseback riding lessons, fairs, exhibitions, babysitting, all of them. She loved it. She looked forward to it so much, and she was always there for them, and that meant so much to us. But that reminds us of when we were young, that she would be at all of our activities, including tennis matches against some good friends that are in the back of the room, the Cohens. She would usually root against the opponents, but not the Cohens. But she was very competitive. She always wanted her kids to win, and sometimes my dad had to calm her down a little bit. Gila, take it easy. But she only wanted the best for her kids and her grandkids. And just wonderful memories that I have of playing golf and tennis with them, and that's something that's now been passed on to the grandkids. Now pickleball, of course, has been added to the mix, and I'm sure Mom would have been playing pickleball as well. But sports and sharing time with the kids and the grandkids and watching them do what they loved, and including dancing as well. Jonathan, she was so proud of all of you.
Both of our parents always believed in celebrating the good times, the good things in life, as long as you could. This is why we celebrate our birthdays and special events for an entire week. This Mom's most recent birthday, which was, again, just a week ago, started with the family taking her to the Miami Open and spending the day there, and then going to,
Yeah, this is a tradition that goes back to New York, the U.S. Open in New York. My father started that on a yearly basis, going to the U.S. Open. When they moved to Florida, it started at a tournament in Delray that ended up moving to Key Biscayne, and ultimately the Miami Open at the Hard Rock where the Dolphins play. And we've been doing that on an annual basis with Dad and Mom, then with Mom, and all the way up to just a few weeks ago during Mom's birthday time frame, we went to the Miami Open. And that it's always followed by dinner at a great restaurant, and it's been Joe's Stone Crab for many years, and that was a wonderful tradition that we enjoyed just a few weeks ago.
and we continued the week celebration midweek, a few days before her actual birthday. We went to dinner, just the girls, just myself and my child, Solace. We went to my mom and dad's favorite little Italian restaurant called Sal's in Legacy Place on PGA Boulevard.
And one thing that Mom did on a weekly basis was following Rabbi Yaron in Temple, Judea. If she couldn't be there in person, which lately was the case, she was always watching it online, and thanks to her age, she was able to do that right up until the last moment. But Rabbi Yaron invited our family and Mom on her birthday to Shabbat, and you really treated her like a queen. You made her feel like a queen, and you made us feel like we were with the queen that we know, our Mom. It was so special, you having her up on the bima to light the Shabbat candles, and letting her grandkids do the kiddush, and not even carding them, by the way. So that we really appreciated that. But you were very special in her life. She really enjoyed following you, loves Temple Judea. So thank you very much, Rabbi.
And the last part of the celebration was a mother-daughter mani-pedi. And she hadn't gotten a manicure and pedicure in a while. And to think that was just a little over a week ago. And that's how Mom and Dad always insisted that we celebrate. And now we've brought that tradition into our family as well, into our families.
And it's not always that in-laws, parents-in-law get along, but my mom and my dad Herbie, from the day that they met Mo and Carol, my parents-in-law, at Joe's Stone Crab, which for those of you that know Mo, he's not a seafood fan, but he agreed, he showed up, and they hit it off from day one. They ended up going on trips together to Hawaii, just the four of them, no one else, to out west, Arizona. Mo would be driving, Herbie was navigating, and Carol and Gila were having great conversations and going shopping and enjoying themselves. I think at one point they were in Las Vegas on separate trips, and they ended up seeing each other on the Strip and ended up reuniting. So just a wonderful relationship. Thank you, Mo and Carol, for all the love that you've given to Gila and of course, to our whole family. But the relationship that you have is just beautiful. Thank you.
One thing I will always remember about my mother is no matter where she was leaving the house to go, she had to put lipstick on. And this included bicycle riding when she was on her tricycle, at the pool, anything. And the other thing I will remember, and for her friends and family who know her well, Mom made sharing food in a restaurant an art form. And before I close, my cousin Jolynn, who's here today, handed me something and asked me to read it. And it was so beautiful that I have to read it. And it says, "Good afternoon. My name is Jolynn Wexler, and I am a Cooper family cousin. On behalf of my sister Sharon, who is attending via Zoom, and myself, we wish the Cooper family our condolences on the passing of a wonderful woman, Gila. A few weeks ago, as I was finishing my call with Gila, I said, 'I love you.' She replied, 'I love you more.' And then she started to tell me how I love you more to anyone, whenever anyone said they loved her, came about. Even though she told me she loved me more, I disagreed with her, and I told her I loved her more. We laughed and hung up. They say a life well lived is a life well loved. As I look around this room, I remember the conversation, and I see all the people who loved her and can hear her saying, 'I love you more.' We will miss you, Gila, and again, I have to disagree with you. Everyone here loves you more. Jolynn." There are probably a million memories that we will think of later, and Glenn and I were up really late writing all of this, and we know there are so many funny stories, many of which our mother would kill us if we told you. But I hope, Mom, I hope you're smiling like I've been smiling, recounting these memories. Always know how much I love you and how much I will always cherish our close bond. I will always remember what a wonderful mother you were. You taught me so many things about relationships and parenting. Thank you. Laila Tov, Mom. Until we meet again, I know you will always be with me. Rest well. Say hi to Dad and all the loved ones, and send our love. I love you, Mom. Ani ohevet otach, Ima.
Before we pass it on to the grandkids to just say a few words, I just want to acknowledge that last Wednesday was the first night of Passover, and we got together at my sister-in-law Jennifer's beautiful house. Thank you, Jennifer, for hosting. And Gila always led Passover. Gila led a lot of things, but she led Passover, and she had it down to a very fine art. But we were a little bit worried because the last couple of weeks were difficult, and we weren't sure, and so we were prepared, to try to step in. And when the services started and we started going through, we weren't even sure if she'd be able to read well. She recited the prayers as beautifully as ever. And so we have wonderful memories at Jen's house, the last Passover, were just not too long ago at all. I'd also like to recognize Gila's daughter-in-law, my beautiful wife, Sharon, and Gila's son-in-law, my super brother-in-law, Robert, who Gila loved as if they were her own children, and who loved and cared in so many ways for our mom. So I want to recognize you and thank you. So Zach and Salas and Jonathan are going to say a few words about their Savta. One story was when Mom was with Zach, just after Sharon gave birth to him, just a few days after she had her first doctor's appointment, and she asked Gila to come because she didn't want to bring Zach into the doctor's office. And Mom, Gila told the story to us a lot. She was standing outside the doctor's office, outside, looking at this stroller with this little baby inside, and it hit her. I'm a Savta now. And four more children after that. She's taken such good care of all of them, been such a wonderful Savta to Zach, Sammy, Solace, Jacob, and Jonathan, who she loved so much and who really adored their grandmother, would come visit her on any moment's notice, loved to spend time with her. She loved talking about them and all of their wonderful accomplishments. And so I'd like to recognize the pride and love and adoration that Mom had and Mom sees. And last, but Zach has a very special, I think, 4-year relationship with Christiana, and you're part of the family. We all love you so much, and Gila loved you so much. And I'm particularly glad that she got to watch your relationship develop, and from heaven she's going to be watching the rest of her grandchildren as they develop as well. So with that, love you, Mom, and love you more again. And thank you. Thank you.
Before we call the grandchildren, I want to offer you, Glenn and Sharon, this poem, which I think is one of the most beautiful poems that was ever written. And it really I think, sends us out of here with the things, with how to carry what we're feeling. And if Gila, for a moment, imagine I'm standing here, but imagine it's Gila saying these words to you. When I die, give what's left of me away to children and to old men that wait to die. And if you need to cry, cry for your brother walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give them what you need to give me. I want to leave you something better than words or sounds. Look for me in the people I've known or loved. And if you cannot give me away, at least let me live in your eyes and not in your mind. You can love me most by letting hands touch hands, by letting bodies touch bodies, and by letting go of children that need to be free. Love doesn't die. People do. So when all that is left of me is love, give me away. And there's a lot of love in this room. It's very obvious. And you question yourself, what do I do with all that love? Because you can't call her anymore and say, I love you more. But you can't take that love. Love is eternal. Love does not die. And there's a lot of people in the family and all around who need that love. And I know that the tremendous amount of love that we see here for Gila will make this world a better place, because we'll all go out there and be a little bit better, a little bit more kind, a little bit more loving to the brother walking the street beside us. And now I'd like to call the grandchildren. And Zach? Zach on behalf of the grandchildren.
Yeah, thank you, Rabbi, and thank you, Dad and Sharon, for your words. It was very beautiful. And thank you all for being here today. It means a lot to our family that everyone showed up in support. And for those that don't know me, my name is Zach Cooper. I was Gila's grandson, and to us, all the grandchildren, she was our Savta, which is obviously grandmother in Hebrew. And, Savta she was amazing to us. I mean, we had so much fun with her, and she always made sure that, we had the best times when we'd visit her. And even from a young age, I'll start with the story that she would always love to tell us. I was probably about, 3, 4 years old, and my brother Sammy was not old enough to speak yet. And she was she was taking us to get ice cream, and she had asked me, she was like, does Sammy like ice cream? I'm like, no, he doesn't like ice cream. So sure enough, she gets me an ice cream, she gets herself an ice cream, and we're eating, and Sammy's mouth is just open, staring at us. And she gave him some of his ice cream, and she realized that, he actually does like ice cream. But yeah, she loved to share that story with us, so I wanted to share the story with the rest of you as well. But yeah, me, Sammy, all of us, we always really looked forward to having sleepovers at Softa's house. It was like going to heaven. My mom, when we grew up, she was very strict with our diet. So, and nowadays I realize where she's coming from. I'm trying to be more health conscious nowadays, but when I was 5, 6, even older as a teenager, I didn't quite understand why we had to eat everything organic. We had to eat everything with no dyes. But we'd go to Softa's house, and she'd take us to Burger King. She'd get us pizza, and so it was awesome. We all loved going to her house, and almost every time we'd have a sleepover at her house too, we'd go to the movie theater. So we'd stop at the gas station before. She'd let us buy all the candy we wanted. We'd stuff it in our pockets, and yeah, we'd walk into the movie theater. So that was one of the special traditions that we always did whenever we'd visit her. So we loved going to the movie theater, and she'd let us watch the PG-13 movies, sometimes even the rated R movies. So yeah, we had a great time with her. And even there was I guess I can call it the Softa 2-for-1 movie special. So we'd go to a movie, we'd watch it, it'd be great. And we'd be leaving, and I'd be like, Softa, oh, look, it's Cars 2. I'd love to watch this. And she's like, oh, okay, let's go. We'll go watch that one, too. So sometimes we'd get a 2-for-1 special. So, yeah, the movies were great with Softa. And also, me and Sammy, we basically learned to play golf at my grandmother's house. She lived in a great, beautiful community with tons of golf courses. And we'd wake up at like 5, 6 in the morning, and we'd get out there and play some golf before all the other golfers arrived. And we'd always go to the clubhouse after to get bagels. And sometimes we would arrive a little late, and there was no bagels left. But she knew exactly where the bagels were hiding. She knew who took them. And, my grandma, something I learned from her, she was very persistent. When she wasn't afraid to speak her mind, she wasn't afraid to, say it how it was. And, the guy that took the bagels oftentimes was in the men's locker room, and she would, barge right in there, and she would do whatever it took to get us the bagels. So something that I always learned from her is that, you need to be persistent, and, she usually didn't take no for an answer. She always got her way. So that was something I definitely took away from her life. And yeah, so when I was a kid, obviously we had amazing times with her, and we've always had amazing times with her. And obviously the last few years, she got sick and got ill. And when we first found out about the stage 4 lung cancer, we were obviously all very devastated, and we were trying to do our best to communicate to her, you need to see a doctor, you need to do some treatment. And, Softa was very adamant about she didn't want to do anything, and she was, going to go whenever she wanted to go, and everything was meant to be. And with me and Softa, and I think most of her grandchildren, we had a very fun and loving relationship, and these types of serious conversations weren't something that we often had with her. But I remember, speaking with my dad, and it was about probably 1.5 years, 2 years ago, and I decided I was going to go up there and, try to talk to her and try to convince her to, see a doctor, do some treatment. So, I drove up, and we went on a bike ride. And I'll always remember this bike ride because, I started trying to advocate to her. I was telling her, Softa, we love you so much. We want you to be here forever. We want you to get healthy. We want you to do treatment. And she was like, Zach, listen, and she would tell me this all the time. She always believed that, God had a plan when you were born, and God had a plan when you were going to pass away. And she was like, I accepted my fate. I'm okay. Whatever happens to me is going to happen. And she always would tell me, whatever happens is meant to be. And at the time, I wasn't totally sold on it. I was like, it's her decision. We can only push her so much, but we left it at that. But here we are 2 years later, and with stage 4 cancer, she lived 2 beautiful years. We got to spend so much time with her. She got to continue to do all the activities that she loved, and in hindsight, it looks like she was totally right. So I think a lesson that we could all take away from her beautiful life that she had was that, everything does happen for a reason, And God obviously has a plan for everyone, and she was truly a testament of that. So yeah, I mean, that's something that I personally, try to live by, and I think everyone should live by, and she's really, really a great story of that. But I'll let Solace and Jonathan come up and say a few words as well. But again, thank you everyone for being here, and look forward to seeing you guys later.
I'm not as neat as them with their folders. All right. Hi, I'm Solace, as Zach said, and my Softa was strong. She was strong. She was there for everyone in our family, whether it was just someone to talk to, or you actually needed someone, or you needed advice. She was there. And she was willing to help us do whatever we wanted to do. There's a story about that. So me and my younger cousins, Jacob and Jonathan, on New Year's, we decided we wanted to do a lemonade stand. I don't know how this idea happened, but we decided we wanted to, and we were going to sleep over at our grandmother's house. We were going to do a lemonade stand. And so we did. Of course, normally you wouldn't get a lot of sales just sitting in someone's driveway, but my grandmother made it happen. She invited every person she knew in that community, and by God, we sold lemonade. And we donated all the money to St. Jude's after, so she really helped. And she did that multiple years in a row for us. So she really took care of us. And she also loved to travel, as my mom and uncle told you. And sorry, this is harder than I expected. One of my favorite things to do when I slept over at her house was we'd sit on the floor together in front of her big display cabinet, and she'd open it, and she pulled things out, things she'd gotten on these trips to faraway places that sometimes I hadn't heard of. She'd tell me all the stories of her travels, and he'd tell me about how growing up too, about how her dad used to bring gladiolas to her mom, which her mom didn't like particularly, but it was okay. And I'd ask about things like a newspaper clipping on her wall. And that clipping was about how my grandfather, for multiple years, had put things in the paper for their anniversary. And he finally got an entire half-a-page article to himself to talk about how amazing his wife was, setting real high standards for whoever I'm going to marry one day. And she was great with all of us. She made sure to talk about anything we liked. And she knew I loved animals. And we'd watch National Geographic before bed. I remember that. And she used to take me to the golf course too, but I didn't like golf. She took me because we both liked going to this little island in the middle of one of the artificial lakes to watch the birds in the morning, or to see the gators sunbathing on the sides of those same lakes. And one thing that will always probably be one of my specialist memories of my Softa. We were bat mitzvah together. We read from the Torah on our first time together. And I remembered that entire day I'd said I wasn't gonna cry, and I was doing so well too. I hadn't shed a single tear. And then the rabbi called both of us up, and he started saying a prayer over us. And I remember looking at my grandmother and us holding each other, just us saying, "You did so good, you did so good," to each other. And it just came out. and we were both crying, but it was happy tears, so it was good. That's probably one of my most special memories of her. And as I mentioned, my grandfather earlier loved her very much. And I remember one of the days, it was probably a little less than a year ago, I was worried that she was scared of the end. And she took my hand, and we sat together. And she said, "I'm okay. It's my time. When it's my time, I'm ready to go. And I'm going to see my husband again." And I miss her now, and I'm going to miss her. But I think about what she said, and I know I'm going to see her again one day. So it's not really a goodbye, I guess. It's more of a see you later. So I'll see you later, Softa.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming today. My name is Jonathan Cooper, and I'm the youngest of Gila Cooper's grandchildren. I just wanted to say a few words about my Softa, Gila Cooper. There really was no person in this world like my Softa. She was always so happy and so full of life. She always had a smile on her face, and she lived every day to the fullest, whether she was biking, swimming, and even going out every weekend. Those are only some of the many reasons why she is one of my biggest inspirations throughout my life. I have so many memories of my Softa. Some include riding around on the golf course at PGA, even though we might have not been supposed to do that. Going on day trips to Miami, the movie theater, or the zoo. Spending New Year's at her house with my brother Jacob and my cousin Solus. Our yearly cousin lemonade stand that raised money for St. Jude's Children's Hospital. Going to the Miami Open every year in honor of my Saba Herbie, and going to lunch every Sunday. I will never forget these memories. Another thing I'll never forget is how proud she was of me. She always told me she was proud of me, whether it's for who I was as a person, my academics, or my dance. That meant so much to me, and I'll always remember it. She also always had a story to tell. There was one particular story that my Softa told me that has really stuck with me. Softa's dad used to tell her the words, "I love you to the moon and back," and "I love you more." And this meant a lot to her. She told me this at a really young age. Eventually, we started saying those words to each other for as long as I can remember. At a point, it became tradition. The words, "I love you more," are in fact the last words I have ever said to my Softa. I didn't know that at the time that they would be my last, but I'm so grateful that they were. I'm really gonna miss you, Softa. You made everyone around you feel loved, happy, and cared for just by being yourself. There really was no sweeter person in the world than my Softa. I'm so grateful for the 15 amazing years I had with you. I love you to the moon and back, and yes, I love you more. And I'll carry your legacy with me every day. Thank you for being the best Softa I could ask for.
She would be so proud. She was. And this is what Psalm 23 talks about. It talks about this ability to look at our lives and to say that our cup runneth over. If we only carry a rod and a staff in our hand through this journey called life, which is a journey through the shadow of the valley of the shadow of death. One might see this and say we start dying the moment we're born. And yes, we know that it is inevitable, and one day we will all meet. But and there's a reason that we know that is because it pushes us to do the best that we can with our life. It pushes us to be the best, to raise the best, to give the best example, to be a source of inspiration. And I think that after sitting here and listening to both of you, Glenn and Sharon, and to the grandchildren, and to I know many other stories that have not been shared, it's very clear what her rod and her staff were. It was you. It was her family. Adonai rohi lo echsa bihinot sheyarbitzeni al mei menuchot yenaleni nafshi yeshovev yancheni b'maglei tzedek למען שמו, Leman shemo, leman shemo. The words in English are on the wall in front of you. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest the table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. And so that is where Judaism doesn't believe in the existence of a heaven or a hell. It believes in the return to God. Our soul, our neshima, our breath, neshama, neshima, come from the same verb, returns to God, just as it was implanted in us with the breath of God in the story of Genesis. But there is an element of heaven and hell, and that element is, and I don't know who is whom, Sharon and Glenn, but if when you were young and you had report cards that you received in real report card, and you had to go home and show your creator the report card. If it was a good report card, I'm going to look at Sharon for that, I don't know. If it was a good report card. Oh, the grades were never an issue. Then it's heaven. You walk back to your creator showing, look, I've done well. And Glenn, I don't know if it was not such a good report card. You walk slowly home because you need to give some explanations to your creator. And that is the same with our soul. We believe that throughout the first 7 days after someone passes, the soul is still with us. It stays around to check and see that we're okay. And then it starts making its way to God. The worst report card, it takes a year to get back. That's why we celebrate a yahrzeit. By the time we celebrate a yahrzeit, they're there. But I could tell you something, and I didn't think about it until a moment ago as I was sitting and listening. As you all know, tomorrow Passover ends, and with it, officially Shiva ends. Because when somebody passes away on Passover, the road to God, and especially, and it's not everyone, there's no need to stay here for a week. There's no need to wonder, are you going to be okay? This is a true holiday of freedom. Gila's soul is free from any worries because she has built, together with Irby, such a beautiful family, loving and supporting and Jewish and caring. And her soul has done nothing but good. And the courage, as both of you, that she displayed in those last 2 years is one that will leave us inspired and willing to live life to its fullest as a tribute to her. And so there's one last prayer that we need to say. And by the way, I just wanted to say for Alice and Alice and Landy, you are honorary member of the tribes right now. You have watched more Friday nights than most people here. Then I'm officially making you honorary members of the Jewish tribe. So just know that. I'll give you the certificate afterwards. We are saying goodbye to a positive, a beautiful, a loving, a strong, a family-oriented. And as you described, I think none of you said it, but the way you described her, you might have taken her away from Israel, but you couldn't take Israel out of her. And that, I think, is true to most Israelis that I know. And so we now want to actually send her on her way with the El Maleh Rachamim, the prayer that asks God to please open the gates of the wings of God and bound her soul in the bond of everlasting life. And so, of course, we will use her Hebrew name, Gila Bat Chaim Lieber and Rachel. I'll ask you, if you can, to please rise. El Maleh Rachamim, שוכן במרומים, המצא מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה, עם קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים, את נשמת גילה בת חיים ליבר ורחל שהלכה לעולמה. בעל הרחמים יסתיריה בסתר כנפיו לעולמים, ויצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתה, אדוני הוא נחלתה, ותנוח בשלום על משכבה, ונאמר אמן. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Gila bat Chaim Liber and Rachel, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in your eternal presence, and let her soul be bound in the bond of everlasting life. God is her inheritance, and may she rest in peace. And let us say, Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, this does conclude the chapel portion of the service. We're now going to head out to the mausoleum. We are going to be walking there. We'll take the casket out first. We'll ask the immediate family to follow directly behind the casket, and if everybody else would follow behind them.